Have you ever encountered those children who seem well behaved from a very young age? They do not fuss or make noise, maintain steady grades, earn teachers' favor, receive neighbors' praise, and even prompt strangers to remark, "Your child is so sensible." In crowds, they remain quietly just right, with a presence that is neither too much nor too little. Always cooperative and always meeting expectations. But what you do not realize is that their quietness stems not from a lack of emotions, but from never allowing themselves to express them. Their cooperation arises not from trust, but from training. They realize far too early that to avoid trouble, one must be sensible. Thus, they become the child who immediately apologizes if they drop chopsticks in a restaurant. Even when it is not their fault, they are the first to say sorry. They habitually observe the atmosphere, mend awkwardness, and resolve conflicts, even those they did not create. They routinely make themselves smaller, hide their true needs, postpone their desired choices, and suppress feelings of discomfort. And all of this outwardly appears as merely a mature and steady child. So no one notices and no one asks, "Are you really happy?" As adults, they continue this pattern. They are the employees at work who never overstep boundaries, the ones at gatherings who comfort others, and the partners in relationships who always yield. Others describe them as gentle, bounded, and well-mannered. But only they know that behind this gentleness lies chronic tension and unease. They live as if constantly broadcasting a signal, "Do not worry about me, I am fine." Yet in truth, they have always been exhausted. Exhausted from constantly controlling their words, expressions, reactions and desires. Exhausted from meticulously maintaining that no problem image. Sometimes they suddenly squat down in the shower, hugging their knees and taking deep breaths for a long time. Sometimes, on solitary nights, they inexplicably shed tears without knowing exactly why they feel sad. You might know such people, or you might be one yourself. They appear very calm, but that calm is actually a habit trained over years. It is not because they innately need no care, but because they learned early that the cost of being seen is too high. Their daily life is filled with extreme self-controlled performance. When others raise their voices slightly, they immediately tone down, adjust emotions to the lowest, as if they were the ones causing trouble. Faced with unreasonable requests, their first reaction is not refusal, but assessing if they can agree first. They excel at using "it is okay," "I can do it," or "no need to trouble yourself" to mask inner struggles. Over time, they even forget that saying no is possible, even necessary. At work, they are the praised, stabilizing force. Whatever you assign, they never push back, even when utterly exhausted in body and mind. They never let others worry, even if they can no longer hold on. When you ask, "Are you okay?" they will smile and nod, "Fine, fine." They say they are used to it, but this habit never came from comfort, only from silent compromise. In relationships, they habitually understand the other first, rather than express themselves. When the other becomes emotionally agitated, they immediately lower their head and stop arguing. When questioned, they self-reflect first, even knowing inwardly they did nothing wrong. They fear conflict, even fear appearing inconsiderate. Thus, their expression compresses to the extreme, leaving only cooperation, tolerance, and adjustment. They rarely trouble others, yet often feel anxious about whether they might disturb you. They strive to bear burdens, yet frequently feel still not good enough. Even in extreme grievance, they only say, "It is fine, maybe I am too sensitive." They use smiles to cover disappointment, silence to handle anger, and understanding to evade hurt. Even with hearts full of cracks, their words remain, "Do not worry, I am fine." These disguises are not hypocritical, but automatic reactions rooted deep in the heart. They do not lack desire to express, but have long habituated to suppression. They do not avoid collapse, but habituate to enduring first. You see a gentle person, but you do not know how much effort it takes to maintain that decency. Deep in their psyche, this ongoing sense of control is not innate. It is a safety strategy implanted from childhood. They understood too soon that the world will not pause for their emotions. They discovered that only by being quiet, sensible, and non-troublesome does the atmosphere calm and the home stay orderly. Thus, they began using self-control to exchange for other stability. This control is not overt. It is not commanding like you must not cry, but subtle hints, such as a sigh, an indifferent glance, or an ignored emotion. They learn to observe, judge, and correct, like silently adjusting posture on a stage to avoid making floor noises. They did not realize that this emotional suppression results from repeated self-adjustments. In psychology, this is a typical adaptive defense. Children cannot change the environment, so they change themselves. They maintain predictable relational safety by retracting anger, diminishing needs, and hiding impulses. When external control becomes routine, they mistake compliance for maturity and submission for peace. They do not lack desire for freedom, but fear its uncertainty. They have ideas, but fear expression leads to loss of control. Subconsciously, they equate being liked with being controlled. As long as I live up to your expectations, I will not be abandoned. As long as I do not disappoint you, I can stay in this safe zone. This psychological mechanism is extremely covert. It appears as stability, rationality, and propriety, but actually stems from deep fear of loss of control. They use restraint to maintain order, rationality to mask fear, and responsibility to digest anxiety. Sometimes, they even control happiness through evaluation. Am I too happy? Will this be too overt? They cannot tolerate their own emotional fluctuations, because in their world, emotions mean risk. Once true feelings are revealed, relationships may fracture. Thus, they continually suppress themselves to sustain surface balance. They know this is tiring. They just know too well. Tiring is better than losing control. This becomes their inner default rule. They even derive a strange sense of security from it. Controlling myself at least prevents others from controlling me. But this security comes at the cost of freedom. They mistake it for stability, when it is merely another form of fear. They mistake it for rationality, when it is the scar of long-term defense. They are not indifferent, just too afraid of chaos. They are not without desires, just habituated to breathing within boundaries. They do not reject love, just never learned to remain uncontrolled in love. Finally, you discover that defense is not a flaw. It is simply their way of striving to survive amid chaos. They were not born this sensible. Just one day, they sensed something more effective than crying, safer than expressing. Perhaps that time at the dinner table, when they said they disliked a dish and heard, "Do not be picky, you should be grateful." Perhaps after school, when they tried to share a grievance and were interrupted, "Did you not have some fault yourself?" Perhaps in some unnoticed moment, they first learned silence. Control starts small. It is an atmosphere, a tone, an intangible sense that it is better not to. It is seeing disappointment in eyes, the moment emotions spill slightly. It is knowing subconsciously, even while learning to speak, that saying wrong causes trouble. It is not one-time violence, but ongoing conditioning. You said I do not like it. They grew cold, so you learned liking can be faked. You expressed anger. They called you impolite, so you learned smile from now on. You cried long, no one responded, so you learned to wipe tears yourself. Perhaps they meant no harm. Perhaps they were treated similarly. But in your small world, those unanswered emotions became commands. Do not say too much. Do not think too much. Do not occupy too much space. Back then, you barely understood love, only that satisfying them made the world safer. You found that being non-troublesome, error-free, and headache-free lightened the mood. You even felt that such a self was worth keeping. Thus, from a very young age, you made suiting others your survival mode. You shut down the protesting self, hid the questioning self, lulled the crying self to sleep. You began reading air, faces, tones, silences. You always compromised a step before others spoke. Later, as an adult, these became part of you. You no longer recall the exact scene of the first time, not allowed to be myself. But you always remember how piercing the feeling of disappointing others was. You always remember those nights desperately controlling emotions just to keep others at ease, how quiet they were. You do not lack desire to express, but learn too early expression is useless. You do not lack desire for love, but learn too early. Only the likable version is safe. You quietly turned repeated experiences into beliefs. You told yourself, if I am a bit more obedient, I will not anger anyone. If I am less emotional, no one will dislike me. If I do not disappoint, perhaps they will not leave. You thought these were temporary measures, but they became life's basic rules. You automatically yielded, understood, suppressed. Not because you are weak, but because you excel at self-regulation. You grew to understand others more and more, yourself less and less. You can discern everyone's emotional shifts, yet hesitate even over wanting dinner. You trained yourself so well that others never worry you will collapse. So well that no one believes you might actually be at your limit. You became a useful person, not one cared for. You habituated to hearing, "You always make me feel at ease," but know that ease comes from your self-sacrifice. Your presence relies on not disturbing, not complaining, not conflicting. You even feel proud of this emotional invisibility as maturity. Until one day, you start feeling empty. You sit among friends, yet feel unable to truly connect. You date yet can never relax and voice dissatisfaction. You face family forever as the always sensible child, not an adult with temper and boundaries. You called yourself too tightly, even barring your own entry. You fear misunderstanding, so you stay silent. You fear rejection, so you swallow requests. You fear failure, so you only do sure successes. You live under implicit pressure from an internal no-mistake system. You are like a machine, always running, precise, efficient, silent, traceless. But humans are not machines. So you begin insomnia, fatigue, inexplicable rapid heartbeat, loneliness in crowds. You experienced no major disaster, yet often feel on the verge of collapse. This is not whining or fragility. It is because you have not asked yourself for too long, "How are you doing?" You thought you avoided trouble, but you also avoided love. You thought you maintained balance, but you rejected your true self. You thought this satisfied everyone, but ultimately, you lost yourself. You became someone everyone calls really great, yet no one asks, what kind of person do you want to be? One day, you suddenly realize those rules you thought mandatory were never truly demanded. You recall thoughts of, "I cannot" or "I must not," and ask, "Who said so?" You discover those voices long externalized into inner alarms. Even without external stop, you break yourself. What you thought was the good child was merely a shell crafted to satisfy adults. You thought it was personality, but it was defense, You begin seeing that suppression, yielding, silence, cooperation were not because you should, but because you were too habituated. You have ideas, but fear they cause trouble. You are not indifferent, but fear being seen leads to problems. When you finally say, "I do not want to," you feel unprecedented panic. But in that instant, you first hear your own voice. Your heart races, palms sweat, mind blanks, but you know this is starting over. You no longer blame yourself for not living authentically from the start. You gently say, you were not cowardly, you were protecting. You were not indifferent, you were self-preserving. You were not emotionless, you learned to handle quietly. You did not need no love, you were forced to habituate to unconditional sensibility. You begin slowly, allowing imperfection. You try pausing, even 3 seconds, not responding instantly, not agreeing instantly, not saying fine instantly. You begin asking yourself, do I really want this? You try expressing small dissatisfaction, even softly. You begin understanding that the self always smiling it is okay was just too long and asked, do you matter? You're not a failure, just forced to be a good person too long. You begin shedding the overpraised shell, retouching the long-ignored self. This is not regression, but coming home. You begin realizing healing is not drastic self-revolution, but slow reapproaching. Not denying all past, but finally giving yourself breathing room. You no longer measure worth by did well, but by am I living honestly nearing the heart. You no longer force understanding others, but slowly practice letting others understand you. You learn to shut up when you do not want to speak, ask for help when needed, stop pretending strength when hurt. You no longer habitually step back, but occasionally remind, you have the right to stand center. You no longer rush to comfort others, but first clarify your true emotions. You no longer make everyone comfortable the top principle, but seek bi-directional flow in relationships. You consciously practice loosening old structures bit by bit. You begin allowing occasional impoliteness, selfishness, emotionality. You discover the world does not collapse. You also slowly experience, when living authentically, your rightful place slowly returns. Some will no longer habituate to the non-people pleasing you. Others will, for the first time, truly see you. You learn to face changes without panic, gently saying, that is their lesson. You step out of self-control, begin mastering your choices. You escape performance, begin an authentic expression. You no longer rush to fix all relationships, but first mend you with yourself. Healing is never becoming a better new you, but finally returning to the self before fear demanded performance. You begin understanding. You do not exist to ease others. You do not need understanding to have value. You do not earn love through compliance. You were never needed only for being good. You are just you. You are enough. You were always meant to be properly seen. So in the end, you understand, healing is not becoming someone new, but remembering the self before fear arrived.